including the fact that his pica body was immune to little things like hypothermia. He'd come to appreciate those advantages more deeply in many ways than he ever had when a living, breathing young woman named Nimu Alban had used her pica only occasionally, which didn't keep him from sometimes missing that young woman with an aching, empty need. He brushed that thought aside, not easily, but with practiced skill, and closed the panel with a nod of satisfaction. Then he crunched back across the rocky flat to his recon skimmer, climbed the short ladder, and settled into the cockpit. A moment later, he was rising on countergrav, turbines compensating for the battering wind as he climbed quickly to 20,000 feet. He broke through the overcast and climbed another 4,000 feet, then leveled out in the thinner, far calmer air. There was plenty of moonlight up here above the storm rack, and he gazed down, drinking in the beauty of the black and silver-struck cloud summits. Then he drew a deep breath, purely out of habit, not out of need, and spoke. "All right, Owl. Activate Phase 1. "Activating, Lieutenant Commander," the computer said from its hidden cavern at the base of Safehold's tallest mountain, almost 13,000 miles from Merlin's present location. The signal between the recon skimmer and the computer was bounced off one of the self-navigating autonomous reconnaissance and communications platforms Merlin had deployed in orbit around the planet. Those heavily stealthed, fusion-powered snarks were the most deadly weapons in Merlin's arsenal. He relied on them heavily, and they provided him and the handful of human beings who knew his secret with communications and recon capabilities no one else on the planet could match. Unfortunately, that didn't necessarily mean someone or something off the planet couldn't match or even exceed them, which was, after all, pretty much the point of this evening's experiment. Merlin had chosen the Castaway Islands with care. They were 11,000 miles from the temple, 8,700 miles from the city of Tellisburg, 7,500 miles from the city of Cheraith, and just over 2,600 miles from the Barren Lands, the closest putatively inhabited real estate on the entire planet. No one was going to see anything that happened here, and no one, aside from those Arctic wyverns and seals, was going to get killed if things turned out badly. 24,000 feet below his recon skimmer, the device he had just examined came to life as Owl obeyed his instructions. No one looking at it would have noticed anything, but the skimmer's sensors picked up the heat source immediately. Merlin sat back, watching the thermal signature as its temperature rose to approximately 500 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale Eric Langhorne had imposed upon the brainwashed colonists almost 900 Safeholdian years ago. It held steady at that point, and if there'd still been any human or pica eyes to watch, they would have noticed it was beginning to vent steam. Not a lot of it, and the wind snatched the steam plume to bits almost more quickly than it could appear. But the sensors saw it clearly, noted its cyclic nature. Only an artificial source could have emitted it in such a steady pattern, and Merlin waited another 5 minutes, simply watching his instruments. "Have we detected any response from the kinetic platforms, Owl?" he asked then. "Negative, Lieutenant Commander," the AI replied calmly. "Initiate Phase 2, then." "Initiating, Lieutenant Commander." A moment later, additional heat sources began to appear. 1 or 2 of them at first, then half a dozen, 2 dozen, then still more, scattered around the islands as individuals and in clusters, all in around the same temperature range, but registering in several different sizes, and all of them leaking those cyclical puffs of steam. The cycles weren't all identical, and the steam plumes came in different sizes and durations, but all of them were clearly artificial in origin. Merlin sat very still, watching his instruments, waiting. 5 more minutes crept past, then 10, 15. "Any response from the kinetic platforms now, Owl?" "Negative, Lieutenant."